321 live stream check, 321.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to visiting councillors, members of the public, obviously to Cabinet and to our officer team. Right, so the usual thing when we start a meeting is to say to people that something terrible could happen and we'll leave the building. And my joke, and it's not a joke, is follow us. But there are no practice alarms planned, but if one does sound, in all seriousness, evacuate the town hall please by going down the main staircase or the back staircase to the High Street, then to the car park behind the town hall on St Rumbold Street. In the case of any disturbance, we'll leave, and again, hopefully on that occasion, we won't be followed. Right. This meeting is being streamed live over the internet on the Council's YouTube channel. Will be available to listen to afterwards. The use of mobile phones and other devices, including cameras, is welcome. You're requested to use them discreetly not to disturb the meeting, set to silent, not use voice or camera flash. Microphones, please, members of the Cabinet and others at all times. Let me introduce the work of the Cabinet. It's the main executive body of the Council. It's responsible for day-to-day decision-making on all Council services, makes recommendations to full Council on major policy issues and on the Council's budget. The Cabinet is made up of 7 councillors, each of whom is responsible for a particular range of services, and you can see them now around this table. Let me introduce myself, Councillor David King, Leader of the Council. I'll invite other Cabinet members and supporting officers to introduce themselves, starting on my far left.
Good evening, it's Councillor Alison Jay, Councillor for Highwoods Ward, Portfolio Holder for Economic Growth and Transformation.
Councillor Natalie Summers, Portfolio Holder for Communities, Heritage and Public Protection, and Ward Councillor for St Anne's, St John's.
Anna D'Alessandro, Interim Section 151 Officer and Chief Finance Officer.
Richard Clifford, Democratic Services Manager.
Andrew Weavers, Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer.
Pam Donnelly, Chief Executive.
Good evening, Mark Corey, Portfolio Holder for Resources and Ward Member for Wivenhoe.
Councillor Andrea Loxford-Vaughan, Ward Member for Wivenhoe and Portfolio Holder for Planning, Environment and Sustainability.
Martin Goss, Marlin Ward, Portfolio Holder for Waste, Neighbourhoods and Leisure.
Good evening, Councillor Paul Smith, St Anne's and St John's Ward, Portfolio Holder for Housing.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, on to the agenda then. Item 2, urgent items, and the new Pam Donnelly to my left.
There are none, Leader.
On both counts, yeah. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest, colleagues? No? Okay. Item 4 are the minutes. I invite Cabinet to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 12th of March. Subject to...
Thank you, Chair. Could I just point out there is a slight error in the Have Your Say section where Mr Gilheany's first name is incorrectly recorded, so my apologies to him, and we'll correct that to Barry, the Committee are minded.
We are minded, thank you. It's one of the first rules, Richard. You do a fabulous job for us, so excused at least this one occasion. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, item 5 is Have Your Say, and we'll take this in the order registered. So the first public speaker is Sir Bob Russell. Bob, please, you know this well. Please come up and join us.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the third Cabinet meeting of this calendar year that I've addressed on the question of local government reorganisation, or destruction is another word. I've also spoken at 2 council meetings, including a special council meeting, and I also spoke under the public question time at Essex County Council. And my big concern at the moment is, or 2 concerns. One is, what is the future of the civic role of the historic Colchester, city of Colchester, as we've been for less than 3 years? And the second is that the people of Colchester are not being told what's going on. At the weekend, the councillors for Castle Ward distributed a leaflet, and I'm thanking them because that's the first time any literature has come through my door from anybody telling me what is going on. So I don't know whether Cabinet members have sent out literature in their wards, but I've seen no other literature from anyone, certainly not from the City Council. Yet, in a document, Chair, from the 15 councils with signatory as one of them, on page 32 of the document that was given at the special meeting of the Council, the first words on page 32 was communication with residents has already started. Well, I don't know where it started, but it hasn't started in Catchwell Road, Castle Ward, Colchester. So perhaps you can explain where this is happening. I got wind of a document published by Grant Thornton for all the 15 councils in Essex, so I thought it'd be nice to have a copy of that. So I tabled a Freedom of Information Act request, I sent a copy, and I was told I couldn't have it because it's confidential. And I'm asking myself, what on earth can be confidential about the reorganisation of local government, a document that's been requested by the 15 authorities, paid for by the taxpayers across Essex. And as a member of the public, I'm not entitled to see it. Now, I don't know whether all 51 city councillors have seen this document, and if they have, what are their views on it. The other thing, Chairman, the Special Meeting Council, you've given, in effect, a blank cheque, and I don't envy you that, because you have got to represent Colchester against 14 others. And at that council meeting where you've given that blank cheque, I've asked for a show of hands. Did anybody welcome the demise of Colchester City Council? Not one hand went up. 23 people spoke, one of whom was a city councillor, so the leader of the county council. And within days, he is out there saying he wants to see a unitary Essex. So I'm not sure which hat he's wearing when he says these things, but all I'll say is that I wish you well, but I am concerned, and I would suggest, Chair, that it might be a good idea if every week you circulate all 51 councillors telling them what has happened that week and that the information be shared with the people of Colchester.
Thank you, Bob. There's quite a lot in there, but I'll pick up some of the key points as I hear them. So the importance you place on civic role, tradition and its continuity, we've had this conversation every time we all spoken, I think, apart from county, I wasn't there on that one occasion. Our position is the one we've described before, and we're going to make a priority of looking at how we can continue to keep our city status or regain it if lost, which would appear to be a kind of a two-step process. And we're going to make a priority of looking at how we might, to the extent it's a practical proposition, replace is not quite the right word, but fill some of the gap that the City Council's dissolution and transition into a unitary authority will provide. The intent is to provide a sense of this, best sense of this, to members at our annual meeting. So this is just a few weeks away. There's a lot of work going on across all of Essex, you will understand this. The reason I flag it is because it's one of the 3 strands of work that we're going to have to occupy ourselves with beyond the realities of transition, LGR, devolution, and also what we do in terms of governance review, filling the unparished areas and looking at civic tradition. So that's the first point. In terms of information, I've had this from members of the public expressing a surprise at what's happening and a loss of their opportunity to vote, and my response is always the same. Our position as a party is rather different to some, but the realities that are rolled out are being accompanied by a great deal of information. And I have written on this several times in the local paper. We have had press releases ad nauseum, I have to say, from county or us. More information will flow. We haven't done hard copy, house by house, but as I say, we've been very engaged, and what lies ahead will get us to the point that perhaps people will feel more comfort and understanding, because there is a formal obligation accepted in the interim business plan to which you refer that we have to demonstrate consultation and engagement. So this lies ahead. I hope we can help you and those who are interested to have a better sense of what lies ahead. And the last point will be, if you like, the background information, keeping members cited. The promise I made in full council was to do just that. So there's several ways you can do this. One is by direct, active engagement of members. There is a practicality about this. You'll understand that when the conversations at the moment are a pretty strategic level, we're limiting how many people we can take from Colchester, those kind of conversations, but we are talking to partners locally, and we're involving each party. And across Essex, I do my best to represent Colchester and feedback. So members have had the pleasure of seeing a 20-odd page slide pack from the devolution steering group that I attended on Monday, and my own brief headlines. This is just one illustration, Bob, of what will keep happening. Next week, there's an all-member invitation to get a briefing from the Chief Exec and the Deputy Chief Exec about where we are on the strands of change that I outlined earlier. So there'll be no shortage of information. When it gets to specifics about certain documents, such as the one you mentioned, it's a bit more challenging. Some information will be confidential, partly because it will be very contested, or could be. So there's something about the timeline for streams of information that will be sucked up, frankly, brought in, and all the consequences of massive change, the disaggregation of the county into any number of unitary authorities, is an unending sea of information. How much we share as we go, and where we can be found by interested members and or the public, that's something we'll be working our way through. But the principle is very much, as promised, as open, transparent, and as effective as we can be. Thank you. Mark, you've got something to add?
I just wanted to add a little bit, Bob, because I share many of your thoughts, I must say. This is being done to us. It is a government policy. And at Essex County Council, they were given the choice, the leadership of Essex County Council, to go along with it. And they did. I was there and I voted against it at Essex County Council. So this is being done to us by a government and then by the majority of Essex County Council. So I think David, I would say from an internal point of view, has done a very good job on the comms to us as members, just to give you that guarantee, and continues to do so, and the Chief Executive along with him. I feel that there needs to be more information from government, as this is the policy of government. I know Councillor Smith has a information leaflet down there to do with the consultation that is still running at the moment. But I do think there needs to be a much greater explanation of what is happening across not just Essex but other places too, as we're coming up to May when elections would have happened. Some of those within my ward keep asking about it, and we're trying to get the information out there. But I would say internally, David as a leader has done a good job here in Colchester, but also across Essex as well. I'll just reiterate, it is being done to us, and I think to put our resources as Colchester City Council into putting out hard copies explaining it should not be our role. I would prefer more information to be out there, but I think it should come from government and those who have made the decision, whether that be Essex leadership or government themselves. Thank you.
To both of you for that, and also Councillor Smith. I haven't seen this document before, so I'm grateful for that. Chairman, I still can't understand why the publication of I can't have a copy of the Grant Thornton report. I would have thought the Nolan principles of transparency and openness would be such that I've been told that. But anyway, we'll let that one park. I'm fully aware that this is government being directed at you. It's quite clear from the white paper. There's lots of inconsistencies in there. They're making it up as they go along, as far as I can see. It's not a government manifesto commitment, so we don't know what's going to happen. The bill has not yet been published. It's got to go through the House of Lords, the committee stage. I think the timetable is such it's going to be longer than envisaged. The cancellation, it's not postponement in my book, the cancellation of the elections on the 1st of May is because I think the majority of the county councillors are frightened that Reform are going to take their seats, but that's debatable. And finally, Chair, I had organised, I've already booked the old library for a meeting on the 1st of May, which is polling day, deliberately, but I won't be able to hold that meeting because I'm told that officers are not allowed to come and speak at a meeting that's not been convened by the council. So unfortunately I will not be able to hold a public meeting, but I invite the council to hold a public meeting.
Thank you, Paul. Jean Quinn, please. Welcome again. Also, Jean, you've been here a few times, so you know what to do.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you again for the opportunity to come and talk with you tonight. I'm here to urge you not to proceed with the recommendation from the Environment and Sustainability Panel to have a 200-metre zone around schools with a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit within that zone. I'm very puzzled as to why the panel would even suggest this move, because it goes against the recommendation and the evidence that was outlined in a report that was compiled by your own experienced officers. Now, you might wonder why somebody from the 20s Plenty campaign is here tonight asking you not to install 20 miles an hour. Well, firstly, it doesn't address the main problem, which is that 80% of child road casualties happen outside their school journeys. So this move would just address a very small portion of the time where children interact with vehicles. But the major point I want to make tonight is that of cost. Because this measure, if adopted, is not a very good use of your limited resources. And as we know, money is very, very tight. So it's good news in a way, don't have it, you can get something even cheaper. Now, I'm going to give the example of Wivenhoe, because I've got the figures for Wivenhoe, and I know we've got two councillors here tonight who represent Wivenhoe, so that's great. Wivenhoe was given over £500,000 to install safe streets for the two school sites that are there, to have red lines put in, signage, cushions, chicanes, 20 miles an hour. However, to implement a default of 20 miles an hour throughout Wivenhoe would only have cost about 66,000, and I'm going on the downside now, and that would cover 100% of children's journeys. I don't know whether you're familiar with the proverb which used to be quoted to me when I was a teacher, which is, hear and I forget, see and I remember, do and I understand. So I've been quoting some figures here with you tonight. So I'm going to hold up figures. This is the £500,000, which I've rounded down. It was higher than that. And this would be the 66, that would be, you just have a default of 20 miles an hour. And I've rounded that up, so it's in favour, both ways. That represents about a fraction of an eighth. Actually, it's probably a ninth, but let's say, call it an eighth. Why would you want to spend more than you have to? So I'm going to say, why spend on an expensive and ineffectual scheme that doesn't work when you could choose a cheaper and a safer option? So please reject this costly piecemeal recommendation and take the courage to have a default of 20 miles an hour where people work, live and play. Thank you.
Andrea.
Okay. Firstly, thank you, Jean, for coming in. I do like the visual. I'm a simple.
Well,
person.
I can't get away from being a teacher, can I?
I know you can't. Yeah, thank you for your views. I don't want to preempt the discussion at 9.1, but if you'd like to stay, that's when we'll consider the recommendation from the panel and make a decision.
That's it?
Yeah.
I take that as good news. No, right, okay, thank you. I submit some other questions. I was expecting answers to those, no?
I thought I forwarded them to you.
That was a previous, that was at the Environment and Sustainability panel, but I did...
If it's environment and sustainability, you won't get them from me.
No.
At your last cabinet meeting, you got a set of questions.
Yeah,
and you've chased
but there were
me.
some for tonight that... No?
No, look, we can take this off
Yes.
away from here.
Yes, okay,
Jean.
I don't want to waste anybody's time.
If we haven't provided a response, we'll make sure we have. We understand we have. So that we'll just repeat, we'll apply it to you, and then we'll come back to us and tell us if there's a gap.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Barry Heaney from Rama. Hello, Barry. Come through.
First of all, thanks for having me again. I'm here again speaking on behalf of Rama to praise the work of the City Council's Resettlement and Diverse Ethnic Communities Service for the work they've done with local refugees. They've made full use of Home Office funding to people in dispersed and hotel accommodation in the City Council area. This includes the offer of first month's rent and deposit for those who are able to find accommodation at extremely short notice, offered when they are at the status. This significantly impacts their chance of being able to find a more permanent occupation and a safer place to stay. They also offers loan or deposits to those deemed not to be in priority need, and it's a loan that has been converted to a gift, which is a long way towards preventing homelessness. After the award of a bursary of £250 to all Ukrainians resident here, the service decided to give £200 to every refugee in the City Council area. Two of the communities team took on the task of ensuring that 6,000 people got the necessary change to the online shared code to comply with changing your electronic visa charges. This included overseas staff at the hospital, at the university, students and refugees. The resettlement services have spent virtually all of the Home Office allocated funding, which we are very pleased about. This is in contrast to our neighbours in Braintree and Tendring, who've spent virtually nothing. And with the onset of devolution, this is causing concern amongst refugees. Would also like to thank Coastal Borough Homes for their work with the refugees and in offering space in their Greenstay premises. This is especially useful to the over 200 refugees who live up there in dispersed accommodation. And finally, we would like to thank a specific senior county tax officer who resolved difficulties for Ukrainian clients, either reducing their bill by 50% or getting an entitlement order and enabling them to pay their backdated bill. So once again, thanks for having me here, and thanks very much. I'm pleased to hear about the work that you're doing with refugees, which is in stark contrast, I'm afraid, to our neighbours.
Thank you. To the button, Barry. And,
Okay.
I just want to acknowledge that, as colleagues do, it's not always easy to speak in public. So thank you for, personally, for making the effort to come here and talk. I'll defer to Natalie.
Hi Barry, thanks for coming, and thank you as well for coming here to specifically praise the team. So on behalf of the resettlement officers, Colchester Borough Homes and the council tax team, I'd like to offer their thanks for your appreciation. Yes. And say too little people do praise good work. People are always quick to shout when things go wrong, but we don't hear enough of when things go right. So thanks for taking the time to come to do that. And also with regards to your visit last time with the Ukrainian refugees and specifically the educational aspect, I was in a meeting with a couple of MPs a few weeks ago, and I did raise this with them there, and they are aware of the issues, and they are lobbying government ministers to try and get a lot more clarity and security for those in that situation. So, so I have flagged it up, and it's on their agenda.
Thank you. Paul.
Thank you. Yes, I too would like to thank you for coming along and telling us, specifically from my housing portfolio, about the work of the housing prevention teams and the excellent work they do, not just for refugees, but for across the whole of the city of Colchester. We still sadly have 450 families in temporary accommodation, and I'm also pleased to hear that we are managing to spend all the money that we're getting from the Home Office. Perhaps we should see whether we could get Tendring and Braintree to lend us some of theirs as well, because I'm sure we could spend it. But thank you. It is good to see the work that's being done, because it's a very difficult area, and I appreciate what's being done. So thank you. And I'll make sure the CBH staff are made aware of your comments.
Yeah.
Barry, anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much for having me again.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and our best regards to your colleagues in Rama. Thank you. Karina Cooper, please. Karina.
I come here having watched in confused horror at the authoritarian response to COVID. Something had shifted. Common sense, evidence case and medical ethics discarded, individual risk-benefit analysis ignored, propaganda replacing informed consent. A sensible playbook for managing outbreaks was abandoned for illogical lockdowns. Taxpayers' money squandered to have people incarcerate themselves at home, our vulnerable elderly sentenced to life in solitary confinement. MPs, media, local councils all failed to challenge this despotic overreach. Councils reinforced baseless claims that compliance and social distancing protected people from coronavirus, a distinct lack of critical thinking. Outright stupidity, some might say. This persists. Government agendas springing from baseless ideology, not evidence or logic. No effective safeguards exist to protect the public from financial, physical or mental harm caused by political whims or eerily communitarian ambitions. 2 years ago, an MP told me, if you think the propaganda the public gets is bad, see what the MPs get fed. Makes sense. Convince MPs, Parliament legislates, for example, net zero, propagandise councils with carbon literacy training, attempt to elicit societal changes that a fully informed public wouldn't desire. Email exchanges about EMF harms robustly evidenced demonstrates councils' failings to uphold the principle, among others, of objectivity, evidence-based and free from bias. Despite having been provided evidence showing lower speeds actually increase pollution and collision risk, the council pushes 20's plenty, a movement started in 2007, which conveniently aligns with a global to local agenda to control travel. 20 miles an hour speed limit near schools during school hours makes sense, but ideology, not evidence, is recklessly driving this unsupported mandate. Councillor Julie Young stated, I was instrumental in bringing in 20 miles an hour to Lower Wivenhoe, and I want to see this rolled out across Colchester. This is a desire which speaks to neither public need nor that little, often forgotten thing, consent. Essex County Council's case-by-case approach is sensible, yet spending decisions are swayed by financial pressures and government policies that favour profiteers over people. The report advocating wider 20-mile-an-hour adoption claims it will make neighbourhoods safer and healthier, but where's the evidence that counters that presented to Council in October 23? The implication that lower speeds inherently improve safety or health lacks substantiation. Whilst funding billions to save another country's democracy, the marionettes championing the idiocracy tout the million we'll save by cancelling ours. I will lawfully be exerting my constitutional right to withhold council tax until the pervasive corruption issue has been addressed. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot in there, isn't there? I'd just be ready to quote some of this back to you. Look, you exercise your right of free speech here and in full council and elsewhere because you live in a country that allows it. But if anybody was to listen to the string of substantive points you're seeking to make, they would think that was not true. Marionettes, ideology, not evidence, despotic power are amongst the things that you've made a remark of. We don't accept them. We don't accept them. You're in a democratic place that's giving you space to pursue your views, regardless of actually what you've just said, objectivity and evidence. I will stop there. I know you'll have something you want to say. Karina, to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. When you mentioned free speech, we've still not had a comeback on why that person got shut down. So obviously free speech is allowed providing it's conversations that the council doesn't find annoying. So first point, you do shut down free speech. Thank you. You could have informed the public about the changes with the council tax demand. So it seems like deliberate, with regards to the proposed changes that are happening. So it does seem deliberately that information's withheld. I'm looking at the Nolan principles, and I do appreciate they're really in a tight squeeze between the public and where you're being pushed. But is it even possible for any councillor to meet the Nolan principles of integrity? Perhaps an independent, but not if you're answering to a political party, or if you're a member of a Fabian society, or if you've done a secret Freemasonry oath, for example. So where you start a meeting saying, any conflict of interest, let's just accept that there's been decades of deception through our governance system. And so whether you accept or believe any of my views, I'm coming here presenting evidence and I'm being ignored. Council is not doing the job it's obligated to do. So we shouldn't be funding it.
Well, that's your personal choice if you choose not to, but I want to be very clear, and I will have the last word on this. Your language is inappropriate, frankly. You're talking to representatives elected by the public.
Free speech.
Within a,
Sorry, my language is inappropriate. Sorry, go on.
It's not a place for conversation. You've made your point and you've repeated it. I just want to be very clear that your views on how we operate are not, in my view, appropriate in their repetition or their manner. We don't shut people down. We do provide information on things that matter repeatedly. We do provide an opportunity for you and your colleagues to say what you will, frankly, whether we like it or not. We respect your right to express your view, and I'm entitled, in my view, on behalf of government, to say whatever your views of it, it is a system that allows you and others to flourish, frankly, whether you feel that or not, and to accuse others here or elsewhere of despotic use of power, I think is inappropriate, and that's my last word. Thank you.
Okay.
That's the last
Thank you
word.
for your lengthy response. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And Councillor Judy Young.
Good evening, Leader, councillors. I just wanted to make a couple of small points. One is around the ICT contract for planning and building control. There's no reference to AI in the document, in the paper that you have in front of you. So I wondered if there is some consideration about the use of AI. If that is being considered, what safeguards will be put in place? Because I know a number of organisations and local and national government are turning to AI with their systems. I welcome the fact that we're working with Braintree, and I think that portal really does need improvement in terms of how the planning system works and how people can actually view papers within that system. The other point, really, I couldn't say any better than Jean Quinn on the 20 mile per hour, and I think it was an interesting debate that I think was ill-fated, if you like, at the Environment and Sustainability Committee. To be honest, I didn't really know why it was there. We had a debate at full council, a motion was accepted, we have a policy position. So why it was rehearsed in the Environment and Sustainable Panel, I really don't know. But, you know, I do endorse the comments that Jean has made here tonight. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed, Judy. On the latter point, we'll have that conversation. I understand, I think we do understand that perspective, but we'll have the discussion on the item on AI. Well, it's very topical. I completely get that. I'll refer to Alison. Thank you.
AI is being considered, but really from our point of view that we have fairly undeveloped systems, and what we're looking for really in this contract is something that is up and working and managing the customer experience in a better way than what we have, and that is really a sort of future development that needs a lot of investigation, probably investment, and actually experience shows that it's not always the best way of handling customer experience. So it's something I've talked to them about and is under consideration. Won't be immediate, but it's certainly there. Okay.
Thank you, and I'm sure as a council we'll be back to these issues again, Judy. Please raise them as you have a concern. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Which brings us on to item 7.1, Delegated Authority award the contract for corporate office building cleaning and sheltered housing for Colchester City Council. Councillor Smith, Paul.
Thanks very much, Leader. This is a request that I'm authorised to agree the contract. The contract is an interim one in that it's being done with not only ourselves, but also Braintree and tendering councils. This will obviously lead to benefits. Also, equally interesting is that the contract specifies that the real living wage will be payable to anyone working under this contract, and that fits fully in with our principles. There is considerable detail as to how the process is being done. I would stress, though, the way in which the contract is being evaluated. It's not being done just on price alone. That will represent 45% of the value. A further 45% will be done on a quality assessment of the work, and the final 10% on the social value, which will, for example, look at the benefits to a local community of a firm that's employing local people, investing in the local skills and what have you, rather than someone operating from a long distance away. And this is something which I think is a very good idea for all councils. So I would ask you to approve it. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Colleagues. Then the recommended decision as in 2.1 is to delegate Councillor Smith as a portfolio holder as required for the award of contract. Are we content?
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Item 8.1, delegation of authority for award of contracts for replacement planning building control system touched on earlier. This is from the interim head of ICT. Alison, please.
Okay, yes. So a decision's needed to replace the existing planning and building control platform Civica app, which, as Councillor Young has just said, it is outdated. It reached end of life in 2017, and there's been 2 unsuccessful attempts since then to migrate to new platforms. The current contract with Civica expires in March 26, and there needs to be a decision so that from December 25 we're in a position to move forwards. The Civica app no longer supports the current regulatory requirements, and there is a difficult front end for customer experience. It frustrates both staff and customers. The recommended platform that is under consideration is iDocs Uniform. It's a market leader used by over 200 local authorities, including Braintree. They're a recognised model user and have a degree of expertise in the area. They have agreed to work with us and share configuration, which should lower some of our costs. Heads of service of both planning and building control are in full support of the move. The iDocs platform will allow the regulatory services work, mobile capacity for some of our officers, and will improve vastly the customer experience. The move would satisfy our immediate business requirements and security issues and integrity, and allow some post-LGR flexibility working with our partners. The figures are within our Fit for Future budget, and there will be ongoing revenue savings. It's a legacy system, not particularly customer facing, with some vulnerabilities that we're currently looking at through business continuity planning, and therefore I support the recommendation that we move platforms, obviously subject to looking at the finances in Part B later.
Thank you. That's very well explicitly said, as is paper. Martin and then Andrew.
Yeah, fully support this, and we have got to move on from very decade-old legacy systems, and to be fair, I think Colchester has done a good job on putting a better wrapper on the front end that we built, I seem to recall. I actually had to put in a comment on the tendering planning portal only this week, and the UI, the user interface, is quite dreadful on that. It's a different system. But what I did notice, and I think this is not an IT issue, but it's a policy issue that I thought I'd flag here, is that for some years we blacken out names and addresses, email addresses, personal details. And yet on the tendering website, when you put in a comment, you have to agree as part of the terms and conditions of registering on the system that your name and address will be published. Now, I've got no issue with that. I've got nothing to hide. My name and address is out there anyway, for anyone that wants to get rid of me. But that's the complete antithesis of our own policy on GDPR. And it was actually a Mile End resident that raised this many years ago, and we suddenly decided to remove everything and anything that was personally identifiable information. So I'm just putting the challenge back, and it's not Alison's problem, responsibility, but I thought I'd raise it, that tendering is publishing details, and we're not. So there's complete change there. So I just thought I'd raise that for us to look into.
Thank you. Well, let's just take that away if we could.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm actually meeting website developers tomorrow, so that can be added to the agenda, yeah.
I mean, that's a point of principle, actually, more widely the case. Andrea, please.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to you directly about some of my pet beefs with the planning portal and things that we absolutely should be changing. I'm only mentioning it now, and all those thousands of people that are tuned in, really on the edge of their seat to find out what this is all about. I know you've got it in hand. That user interface is incredibly important, and I'm really happy to be the guinea pig, because although I use it a lot, I do struggle, and I think, you know, we should definitely do some customer testing.
That's part of the process.
Brilliant.
Is that the development phase will be that we will sit with people and make sure that it works for both our internal customers and external.
Thank you, for both of you for the observations. I think that, you know, we've got to be getting ourselves into a much better place. This paper is frank about the challenges of a system and systems which are out of life, frankly. We've got to get this straight as fast as we can, so we wish you well on that. Councillor Jay, are we content to agree the delegated responsibility? Agree. Okay. While we're at it, there is a related confidential paper where I'll ask the question of members whether this gets into value, whether or not you need to speak to that when we get to the close of the meeting, part 2, or are you content? Content. Okay, thank you. Then we record our awareness of those numbers, which within an envelope within which you'll be working, Councillor Jay. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Item 8.2, Councillor Jay Allison, this is for you again. This is the approval of the updated council development policy and strategy. This is matters. This is looking after fellow members as part of the effectiveness of the council. Over to you.
Okay, so as you say, we're looking at approving what's already been through the member development group. We're charged with developing and monitoring the member development strategies and training needs, which take place through a variety of committee specific training and member awareness briefings, which are broad in scope. There are a number available and range from finance and budget understanding to member resilience. It's especially important as we face the impact of LGR with both uncertainty and a wide responsibility to officers and members and our residents, that our skills are as good as they can be. Colchester City Council has previously been awarded member charter status, and the development group felt that it was important that we went through the reassessment process this year. Bearing in mind it provides a reassurance to residents that their elected representatives have effective support to understand their roles and responsibilities. The key documentation's been reviewed, and there is updates to the development policy, which under 5.4 refers to consultation with group leaders before nomination to Leadership Academy, and the removal of reference to withholding payment of allowances should members not undertake mandatory training. This is a policy that's never been pursued, and the approach has always been to encourage and persuade, and the majority of members take full advantage of what's on offer. The councillor development strategy has also been reviewed, and the most important thing really is the key priority around devolution of local government, and already members will have seen that we've been invited to a number of briefings and being kept up to date with where we are in the process and what potentially might happen. Just rounding off, I think, you know, we should accept these recommendations that have already been looked at cross-group. I just want to thank everybody on the member development group for their time and input, and to Richard Clifford for his expert guidance and drafting of the documentation, which has made the process very straightforward for us all.
Thank you. Any other comments or observations from fellow members around this table? No. Then in that case, thank you very much indeed, Alison. Recommended decisions are, as you described, to approve the updated Council Development Policy Appendix 1 and Development Strategy Appendix 2. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. In which case we go to one of the two recommendations from the Environment and Sustainability Panel at its meetings of the 20th of March. around the Green Events Code of Practice pilot review. Alison, did you want to pick this up?
Just very quickly, that we should bear in mind, looking at the papers, this was a pilot scheme that was just testing best practice and opportunity to exchange views. The recent changes to our events document didn't adopt any particular code of practice and just particularly focused on event sustainability and best practice in those areas, and that we always maintain offering residents a range of different events from which they can choose.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Willis. Dennis, did you want to talk on this item or the next one? No, then march forward, Dennis. Thank you. You heard something of the view that we would take in a free society, as discussed earlier. Eat what you will or not. But over to you, Dennis.
Thank you, Leader. I was a substitute on the Environment and Sustainability panel. First time I'd ever been there, and I was quite surprised at what was going on, which I think results in two recommendations to you this evening. I was delighted to see that there is a national pilot scheme for a Green Event Code of Practice, and that we've taken part in it. But there were some rather worrying issues coming out of it. And it seemed to be a feasibility study which sort of is there to set the minimum environmental standards for outdoor events across the whole of the country, and more particularly in our beloved Colchester. Now, I love freedom, just referring to what was going on earlier on. I love freedom, Leader. I'll do anything to safeguard the freedom of the individual, and I will certainly resist the small minority imposing their woke views on the majority. I was therefore perplexed to read in the Code of Practice, and I accept that it's not yours and it's not our officers, it's their Code of Practice, that there should be a reduction, mandatory reduction of meat and dairy consumed at events on council, held on council land. And we know that while there is not a clear linkage between the Code of Practice and Colchester events policy, that the report is suggesting that the Code of Practice will, in the future, inform future issues of our Colchester events policy, certainly the way I read it. Now, you'll know, Leader, that my view is that it is the duty of the council, its main duty, to promote essential municipal services and not get mixed up with some of the stuff that we get mixed up in, particularly when it impinges on people's human rights. I do not believe we should be telling the taxpayer what they can eat when they attend events on council land. We should not be telling the organisers of these events what they should provide for the attendees. There should be a sort of a sensible ability to provide vegan, vegetarian, carnivorous, or whatever the people attending the events want. And I don't believe it's a matter for this council ever to say what food should be eaten on our land when we rent it out to event organisers. Although we do see in the universities and other woke places these policies being inflicted on the majority. I was therefore delighted that the panel agreed that we should ask Cabinet that in any future amendments or reviews of the council event policy that we should ensure as a matter of principle attendees at events on council land should continue to have a free and unfettered choice of the dietary availability of whatever's being offered by the organisers. And the organisers should also be free to provide whatever their attendees want. So if, as was reported to the panel, one of the organisations interviewed for their view was putting on a sausage event. You know, we shouldn't ban it because sausages, unless they're vegan sausages, are bad for you. So I would suggest that this is not an area where the council should be legislating. It's an area of freedom. There are events or matters in the code of practice which clearly are useful and should be picked up and incorporated in the Colchester events policy, and that is being done, and I think we congratulate the portfolio holder for doing that. But when it comes down to what people eat when they're out to enjoy themselves, that is not a matter for the council, and I'm commending the policy from the panel to Cabinet to say just that in the future. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Andrew.
In principle, I agree with you, Dennis, that, you know, we shouldn't be trying to control what people do or don't eat. I think what we're forgetting is that events make money for us, and most of the choices, dietary choices, are driven by those people participating and what they think their audience wants. So, you know, if you go to a green biodiversity net zero thing, you're going to have a lot more vegetarian options than you would do if you're going for sausage and chip festival. I think in principle I don't mind the recommendations, but what I don't really like is that the first part of it, which is the council takes steps to ensure. I mean, in the same way that we shouldn't try and drive anybody to eat one thing rather than the other, I'm not sure how we put policy in place to actually make that the case. I think events are driven by the people that attend them, and they'll demand what they want, because if they aren't catered for, the people putting on the event will lose money. So it's commercially driven.
Thank you. I don't want to overdo this because I think we can say the same piece several times and we'll end up sort of being in the same place as you, Dennis, but it's a false equivalence because we don't dictate what people eat. But if Martin and Paul want to say something briefly, thank you.
As the saying goes, get off my land, I think, if somebody was in my driveway. Anyway, the point is that it's a free market, and the free market will drive what happens, and consumer demand will drive what happens, like internet shopping. The one thing I would say, having attended a number of events, the price of the goods on sale is what really causes me the most concern. And I'm going off to see Madness at Castle Park this year, and the drink prices and the food prices are astronomical, and that's a concern we should have, the cost of actually what it is to buy those products on site. You know, it's approaching £7, I think, now for a can of JD and Coke for a can. You know, it's expensive, and that's what I think we should be concerned about, actually, the cost of this stuff at events, actually.
Paul?
Yes, I mean, I'm just briefly looking at it. I think the way the recommendation is worded is poor, because if you're talking about an unfettered choice, does that mean that if you're having a festival for a particular religious group, you should enforce all menu choices would be made available? I'm sure that's not what you intended, Dennis. But other than that, whilst personally I'm no great fan of eating dodgy doner kebabs, Dennis, I will defend to the death your right to do it if you so wish.
Oh, that's a rich note, and I kind of feel like we all want to applaud that. We've got to take the recommendation that we have in front of us, and my suggestion, and thank you, Dennis, for coming, would be that rather than take it as it is, that we note the recommendation that this council does not constrain or dictate choice, or continue to leave choice to the market and to the consumer.
If only civil servant for your politics writing that recommendation.
That could cut both ways, we both know that, Dennis, but thank you. Right, the second recommendation addresses the point of the 20 mile per hour debate and discussion, and it's worth reminding ourselves of where we got to on this. As a cabinet, we are, let's be really clear, we're fully behind where full council got to on 20 mile per hour zones across the city. There were some qualifications about needing support, but the principle of exploration was accepted. Andrew, you followed this up with, made sure that the cabinet member for highways was aware of what full council wanted us to do.
Yes, I did, because bearing in mind that decisions and costs around this are the responsibility of Essex and not us. So I wrote to Tom Cunningham, portfolio holders for this area, and he said, in general, Essex is in agreement about the benefits, which are road safety, air quality, encouraging active and sustainable modes, but there are no current plans for Colchester to implement a 20 mile per hour limit or zone in any areas, although individual communities are more than welcome to put forward schemes via the local highways panel, and they are conducting various reports, for instance, place and movement, local transport plan and speed management safety, which they say in the future will inform any plans. But to my mind, until such point as we take responsibility for this, should we do that, it's not something that we can really influence.
Dennis, I know you wanted to come forward. Would you like to come forward and speak on this item as well? Thank you.
Yes, Leader, this is rather more serious than the last one, in my view. When in December 24, we agreed the policy on 20 mile an hour limits, I was ever hopeful. We excluded non-arterial roads. We said we'd only push the issue where residents supported a 20 mile an hour limit, and unfortunately we had to refer it to Essex County Council for any implementation. But it was building up a head of steam, and that head of steam has not yet been dissipated, certainly in my ward and certainly not near my school. Residents around in the village I live were quite delighted with the council's resolution. They didn't really want the expensive complete school street paraphernalia, which Mrs. Quinn was talking about, multi-million pounds spent around every school. What they're really looking for is a 20 mile an hour limit to slow down the vehicles, particularly the heavy goods vehicles, and hopefully the willingness of the police to enforce a 20 mile an hour speed limit, which of course is another matter. So that's what they were looking for. They were delighted. But having attended the panel meeting as a substitute, we were informed that our request is unlikely to be looked at before local government reform, when the county council goes and the new authorities come in 2028. And there are likely to be further delays while the budgets settle or whatever has to happen when a new authority comes in. So it's unlikely that we will see the sort of action that the council had in mind in the debate on in December coming into effect within 5 years. And it's a stark reminder that words are cheap. We can pass resolutions until we're blue in the face, Leader, but action is expensive and far more difficult. And it looks as though on this one, it's going to be a long way down the line before the sort of comprehensive scheme would be introduced, which I think many members had in mind. Now that to me isn't good enough. Certainly to many of the people I represent, it's not good enough. And we have to start somewhere. And one of the easier places to start, given there is a head of steam to protect, do some protection around our schools, would be to have a 20 mile an hour limit at every school, if they so want it, going along with where the residents want it. And I, quite frankly, Leader, was absolutely surprised at the number of people who've crawled out of the woodwork and said, we don't want 20 mile an hour limits unless we can have it everywhere in the way I want it and no other way. And that's great. It's great as a platform, but the reality is We have to start somewhere, and I think the place we should be starting is around the schools. The council is quite wealthy. I know you will disagree with me on that. We have sort of 30 million in the bank. It's all earmarked for things which the council and the cabinet consider more important than 20-mile-an-hour schemes around schools. But there is a degree of flexibility. And some would say if we don't spend some of it, it will be going in 3 years' time to prop up social services in Jaywick or sharing out the debt from Thurrock. So, you know, we should be thinking about what we can do really usefully to make best value of the money that we have. Essex County Council owns the roads. But we have a general power of competence, which, like any developer who wants 20 miles an hour on their development, we can pay Essex County Council to provide 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. I would suggest we should have a project, we should look, Leader, at the possibility of introducing 20-mile-an-hour limits on the roads within 200 metres of every local school, if that's what the community want. And we should look to do it before this council is broken up and we get yet more delays. I think it's a scheme that's well worth considering. It may be we don't have the flexibility to do it, but having passed the resolution in such bold terms in December 24 to say that we will now sit back and have nothing happening for 5 years is untenable, given the worry that many parents have about traffic speeds by their schools. Thank you, Leader.
Andrea.
Just following on from what I've already said, just to sort of give an example of, I mean, I think there's different solutions for different areas, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to pretend that I've got a solution for everyone, but for instance, we have just clubbed together as ward councillors to get some speed indicator devices, which we know work in Wivenhoe. But I know that Essex aren't terribly keen on them. They don't think they do work, but we know that they do work because you can sit and watch the traffic just go like that when they go past them. That's something that's quite easily funded via locality budgets. They're not that expensive, and obviously if you club together with various ward councillors, you could actually buy a lot more. We have the benefit of having a parish that can move them around and monitor them and make decisions. But I'm trying to come up with practical short-term solutions, because I really don't think we have any other option than to wait until we take over highways, because you know, why would we pay for something that is actually the responsibility of a different authority?
Any other observations? If not, Dennis, stay a second and you'll have a couple of mine. We also have to agree how to respond to the recommendations. So look, you've heard something of our take on this. We stand behind, we would, wouldn't we, the decision made by full council. This is a question of practicality and the reality of the competence we don't have in terms of responsibilities for the transport network. And and I'm sure you have, Dennis, if you talk to colleagues in the county council, they will explain to you, they have to, a number of us, on different issues locally, why they will not adopt, for a variety of reasons, 20-mile-per-hour limits. So this is going to be a negotiation and a discussion, and it's going to take some time. So this is not opposition to where full council stands. This is support for those who are concerned about safety around schools or more widely. And I noted, and you will have done too, Jean Quinn made the point that if you look at where casualties arise, predominantly they're not in a near relationship to a school. It's on other parts of the journey, whether that's towards a school or elsewhere. So the issue is more complex than suggested. The discussion at ENS is entirely legitimate, and I thank you for offering your drafting skills again to the committee, but it's not right and it's not exercisable to pretend that we can just take this on in its present form. We have to work with the county council. And I'll go back to the remarks before about that engagement has started. So my recommendations to colleagues is that the first of these recommendations is acceptable up to the third line after appropriate, so that the council works with Essex County Council and others to investigate opportunities to make neighbourhoods safer and healthier by reducing speed limits where appropriate, full stop. That actually is very much in the spirit of, it's a summary, it's the essence of what full council passed. Now, as regards to the balance of our response to the committee, my suggestion to us is that we do not go further than just that sentence. I'd propose that we thank the committee for their support for 20-mile-per-hour limits. We have to remind them that proposals to Cabinet must relate to our powers of competence as a practicality, and they should have a budget and a plan. That's just good business. I ask that the committee be reminded of the position of Essex County Council as we've received it and described it tonight. What I'd like the committee to do is have a watching brief on the progress we would seek to make in the months that lie ahead, and to, if not satisfied, refer to either the portfolio holder or Cabinet by the autumn, by which time we will be clearer on the possibilities through the local highways panel, which is the recommended route to us from highways, and by which time also we'll have a clearer sense of where Colchester is going, and Essex more widely, on local government reorganisation. Are we content with that approach? Thank you. That addresses comprehensively. Thank you, Dennis, for taking the time to come and talk to us tonight. Item 9.1, in which case we go on to the heady heights of 10.1, revised contract procedure rules. I can feel the excitement. This is really essential stuff. I don't want to go through to it in any of the detail needed unless any officer wants to speak up for them. Are we content to adopt this good practice? Okay. Just making sure there's nothing else we might have missed. So, progress and responses to the public. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. The report's just for noting. I have nothing to add to the report, which I think indicates that they've all been dealt with.
Thank you, Andrea.
Can I just check that Mrs Quinn asked earlier about responses to her questions? I've definitely sent them to her. I know that Mel and yourself were going to do that, but I know she's received them. Is there another set that I'm unaware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no. And I know a response was definitely sent to the ones that were raised here, and that's recorded, I think, on here. But I've definitely seen the response that went.
Then could I ask you, Richard, just in case lost somewhere, either in transit or on receipt, I expect, and just resend and ask formally Mrs Quinn whether or not there is any other outstanding issue. Thank you.
Will do, Chair.
And that gets us to 12.1 if we choose to. And we have agreed that despite the excitement of it and the fact that it would give the Deputy Leader a speech to make around the rules for excluding the public, that we're not needing to do such. All right, are we content? Everything done? Thank you all very much indeed. Let's wait until the